Welcome back to New Vegas, everybody. Welcome back to the Wasteland, where today we're going to be taking a look at the Bowie knife and its unique variant, Bloodnap. Just a real quick side note, and I guess a history lesson for anybody wondering. I have gotten quite a few comments whenever I've talked about the Bowie knife compared to other weapons in this game, and people wondering why I call it a Bowie knife and not a Bowie knife. And usually people cite the reference of David Bowie, which kind of makes sense because it is spelled the same way, but this knife is named after Jim Bowie, who fought at the Alamo. That would be the correct way to say it. However, if you want to say Bowie knife, then that's perfectly fine too. It's just that there is a reason why I was calling it that. That being said though, David Bowie is also pretty awesome, and it would be pretty cool to see him playing a character fighting at the Alamo. Maybe you could call him Jim Bowie just to make it even more confusing. Anyway, let's get to the actual weapon we're going to be talking about this time. So this is the Bowie knife. The Bowie knife can be found in the Divide. This is often carried by the marked men. The marked men actually have a very high chance of carrying around Bowie knives on them. So much so that you can actually just find them on dead bodies, and you can find these right at the very start of the Divide. So if you really want to, you can actually run right to the Lonesome Road, just go into the bunker and find the first marked men corpses laying around, loot a Bowie knife off of them, and then run right back to the Wasteland, and you'll have a pretty strong starting weapon. So the Bowie knife requires 75 melee and 3 strength to use. A lot of melee, quite a lot. If you're going to grab this right away, you might not have enough, even if you're pumping melee right at the start. 3 strength is pretty achievable though, so that is pretty nice. This one does 23 damage on hit, which is fairly high, especially for the start. It's actually quite good for a melee weapon. This one does 80 damage per second, which is also quite high. This does attack very fast. This one does 35 crit damage. It actually has more crit damage than it has regular damage, which is really good. The Bowie knife also has an increased crit chance at 1.5 times, so you're more likely to hit crits with it than you otherwise would be with other weapons. This one only costs 20 action points to be using in VATS, which is quite strong. And this one does have its own unique VATS attack. Once you have 50 melee, this one is called Dirt Nap, which this one does a little bit less damage, but it costs less action points, so it can be pretty useful to be using in VATS. This one weighs 1 weight, which does make it so Pack Rat actually affects this, so it could be cut down to half a weight, which is really good. And this one has 100 item health, which is alright. It's about the same as like combat knives, it's slightly more. The Bowie knife and the unique version Bloodnap are also considered improved holdout weapons, so once you have 50 sneak, you can sneak these into any holdout area, which is very strong. If you thought the combat knife and Chance's knife were really strong, the Bowie knife and Bloodnap are arguably even stronger than those weapons, so they are very good. For the pros of the Bowie knife, these ones have pretty high damage per second, which is pretty good. They are very lightweight, you can carry around these no problem, and they do sell for a decent amount, so if you want to pick them up off of marked men, that's basically just money if you're not going to be using them as a weapon. And they also have a fairly low action point cost, so that's pretty good. The unique version even more so that's really nice. The cons to the Bowie knife are really not that much. One is the health. The health is not the best, but it's not the worst either. It's just you can break these fairly fast if you intend on using them a lot. That might not be an issue, especially if you have jury rigging. You can fix this with any other one-handed melee weapon, so that's really good. The other con is, I guess you have to go to the Divide. Bloodnap, that's more of an issue because you do have to go through about 3/4 of the Divide in order to get it. The regular Bowie knife, you barely have to walk into the Divide and you can find a Bowie knife. So it might be a con more for the unique version than for the regular version. There are also quite a few perks that help out with these weapons. Cowboy does help out with these because these are considered combat knives, at least for Cowboy. So you do get more damage with them that way. However, they're not considered combat knives for Grunt. So you will still get the 25% damage boost from Cowboy, just not the extra 25% from Grunt like the regular combat knives, making them also arguably better than this. Although I would say it's a toss-up between Bloodnap and Chance's knife as to which one's better. They're both really good. So Chance's knife is much easier to get than Bloodnap though, so it does kind of have that in its favor. Aside from that, regular, melee, and unarmed perks really help out with these too. Slayer for attacking faster, these things already attack really fast, but you can attack even quicker. Super Slam for knocking stuff down, that's really strong for a melee build or an unarmed build. Piercing Strike to punch through armor. Purifier to kill certain things like Death Claws and Super Mutants. These ones rip through just about everything, so they can definitely kill them pretty fast too. On top of that, I did mention Pack Rat, so you can cut the weight down on these, and if you wanted to incorporate VATS perks as well, you could also do that. They would be really good in this sort of build. For an overall rating for the Bowie knife, I would say that this one is a solid A tier. It is a very good knife overall. It's a very good melee weapon. So let's move over to the unique version, which is called Bloodnap. Now, Bloodnap can only be found in the Courier's Mile, which is the most dangerous place in pretty much all of New Vegas, because in the Courier's Mile, that is where you have the irradiated marksmen and you have the irradiated death claws. And if you're playing on like the very hard difficulty, Deathclaws can one-shot you unless you pump chems into yourself or you have damage reduction. Even if you have the biggest, tankiest armor on and the most amount of health and the most amount of damage threshold, on the very hard, the Deathclaws can one-shot you. Good news is, Bloodnap is actually found right at the very start of the Courier's Mile. So once you go there, once you have this place unlocked, so that is get through about 3/4 of the divide, launch the missile, and then you go back to the start of the divide. Once you're in the town, then that area will be opened up and you can go into the Courier's Mile. Bloodnap is stuck inside of a telephone pole or a light pole, so you can just pull that out and you'll have Bloodnap. Bloodnap actually has different requirements than the regular Bowie knife, which is kind of weird. This one requires only 50 melee and 4 strength, so 1 more strength but 25 less melee, which is very strange. I don't know why that is. This one does 30 damage on hit, which is very good. 111 damage per second, and that damage per second can go up quite a bit thanks to perks. This one also has higher crit damage than it has regular damage at 45. Really good. The 1.5 times crit modifier that the regular Bowie knife has on it, which is also awesome. This one only requires 17 action points to be used in VATS, making it a very good VATS weapon. This one also only weighs 1 weight, and this one has 100 item health. There is also another unique effect that Bloodnap actually has on it, where if you have Bloodnap equipped, you also get plus 10 sneak. So that's pretty cool. And since you can sneak this into places, if you only had, say, 40 sneak, or around 40 sneak, and then you equip Bloodnap, you could potentially just sneak this right into casinos, so that's pretty cool. Bloodnap also has its own unique VATS attack as well, where it has Bloodnap as its VATS attack, which is similar to Dirtnap, but even more damage. Actually quite a bit more, so that's pretty nice and still kind of a low action point cost. Bloodnap is probably one of the best VATS melee weapons in the game, and probably just one of the best melee weapons overall in the game. I would put Bloodnap all the way up into S tier. It is really good, especially since you can stack so much damage on it. You can sneak it into places, it's fantastic. I consider this a potential upgrade to Chance's Knife, which is quite the compliment because Chance's Knife is definitely one of the best melee weapons in the game too. So having Bloodnap rival it or potentially even be better than it, that is pretty awesome. Tell me your thoughts on the Bowie knife and Bloodnap down in the comments below. I'd love to hear them. How do you guys enjoy using them? I think they're both really cool. I like them both. Thank you guys so very much for watching this. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will talk to you guys next time. Bye-bye, everyone.